in bass fishing, a lot of guys talk about flipping, and flipping is a great way to go out there and catch fish. But a lot of guys these days, when they talk about flipping, they're actually talking about pitching a bait. And if you don't know the difference, pitching is actually when you take the bait like this and you pitch it out. That's what most people refer to when they say flipping. Now, actual flipping, which was actually invented by Dee Thomas out in California, is when you take the line in your hand like this and you flip the bait. It's a very close presentation, and it's something that it just seems like a lot of guys don't do anymore. And today, I've kind of made a challenge for myself. I want to just flip. I want to actually flip to see if you can still go out there and catch fish just flipping. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to catch us a 5 bass limit just flipping. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. You know, one of the most important things that you can do when you are really close range fishing, like I am today while I'm flipping, is keep your trolling motor on a constant speed. I think a lot of guys are really used to just kind of hitting that trolling motor and then letting off of it, and that actually scares a lot of fish. So I actually have the trolling motor on a constant speed right now, just kind of going down the bank here, and I'm just flipping literally everything that I see that looks good, which there's a lot here. So we got some pads, we got some milfoil, we got some coontail, we got a lot of little brush. But the goal is just to actually flip and see if this is still a great way to catch bass. Here we go. All right, starting out with a freaking giant, right? No, but hey, that is a purely flipping fish. I'll tell you one thing I noticed about that fish is that he was actually on the underside of all this cover. So that might be a deal. I've seen it a lot of times when you're flipping, especially matted cover like I have today, is that those fish sometimes get on the underside of mats. You think that they're relating to the bottom when actually they're on the top, just underneath the mat. So if you raise your bait to the mat and kind of bang it on the underside of that mat, that's where you'll get bit. So today I'm using my favorite flipping and pitching bait. This is a Berkley Pit Boss. This is just straight green pumpkin. I got it on a 5/0 trocar hook, a 1/2 ounce pegged weight, and 20-pound straight fluorocarbon. So usually a lot of times when I am pitching anymore, I actually use a braid to fluorocarbon on a smaller rod. Usually I use something like a 7-foot 3-inch rod. But today I'm actually using a 7-foot 11-inch rod. And the extra 7 inches of a rod actually gives me about 2 feet further in distance that I can flip. So since I'm only flipping and not pitching, I wanted to go with the little bit longer rod. If you're interested in picking up any of the tackle that I'm using today, you can find it all at sportsmansoutfitters.com. Whether that's rods, reels, line, the bait, the weight, or the hook, Sportsman's Outfitters has you covered. So if you'd like to greatly help support the Bass Fishing HQ channel, click those links down below. Now, a lot of you guys might be sitting there and say, Tyler, aren't you flipping with the wrong hand? And you know what? I honestly don't think that it matters. This is the way that I learned to flip. It's the way that I kind of modeled myself after Gary Klein and Takahiro Amore. They've always flipped this exact same way. And it's a way that I feel really comfortable with. I don't miss fish because I'm flipping with this hand. You know, a lot of guys might argue I should actually be flipping this way, which I can do, but it's just not as natural feeling to me. So I prefer to do it with my other hand. Honestly, if I were to switch over to a left-handed reel, I think that I would miss more fish because my hook set might be a little bit funky from not being used to setting the hook in that motion. So, oh, there's another one. Got him. Oh, another little one, but hey, it's another straight flipping bass. Tell you what, this is actually kind of fun to do. Something about it is just very stealthy. Just a nice little bass. I gotta imagine that we're gonna get into a big one though over here because it just seems right for a big bass. I mean, we got heavy cover, we got a little bit of mixture of cover. We ought to get a big one. You can hit a lot more targets very quickly. You know, it's very easy for me to bring this bait in and out. And with pitching, you know, I might be able to pitch a little bit further, but it takes me a little bit longer to reel that bait in and get it back in the water. With flipping like this, it's just so super quick. I feel like I'm able to hit about 2 or 3 times more high percentage areas if I'm straight flipping as opposed to pitching. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks is simply the distance. I'm not able to flip near as far as I can pitch. Oh, let's go. Here we go, baby. Okay. That's a little bit better one right there. Now that fish came out of pads. Definitely a better one. Man, that was fun. That's 3 fish I've caught doing this. I might try to do more than 5 just because this is a freaking ball. Every one of those fish has been right below the surface of this kind of matted vegetation that you see here. It's just something that's so minute, but it's so important to be able to pick that up when you're doing this type of technique. I was actually getting ready to take that bait out of those pads and that fish came up there and poof, nailed it. So that is just something really important to pay attention to, because stuff like that can help you to get way more bites on the water. Like, I am really gonna concentrate a lot of time, not only just pitching this bait into good looking stuff, but bringing it up to the roof and bouncing it off the roof of the cover. You know, I'm not sure if you guys can tell by looking, but this lake is actually very low. Usually I think it's up about another 3 foot. Sometimes that can be good for a flipping and pitching and shallow bite, and sometimes that can be really tough. It just kind of depends on the water level. I mean, sometimes fishing lower water actually makes it kind of like a tidal situation, where if you're fishing low water tide, what it does is it condenses the bass to be on certain pieces of cover. A lot of times outside cover are kind of the last remaining pieces of cover that are still in the water. And sometimes that means that you can really have a ball and catch a lot of fish on just a couple of pieces of cover. Now, sometimes it gets too low and the fish just completely void out of the shallows altogether. As you can see, we've caught 3 bass, so there's obviously some fish here. But the question is going to be, what are the bigger fish doing? Are the bigger fish out deeper on the main lake? You know, a lot of times when you're flipping and pitching cover like this, especially heavy cover, like there's going to be at least a couple of big ones still pretty shallow. So I'm hoping to run into those today. Oh gosh. Golly. There's another one out of pads. Oh man, this is fun. I know that ain't a giant, but this is a lot of fun. Now, a lot of you guys might be wondering why I'm not using like a straight braid in this heavy cover, and the biggest reason is because of all the wood that we have here. If this was just, you know, milfoil and lily pads, I probably would use a straight, you know, 40 or 50 pound braid. But if you're using straight braid in wood, a lot of times that braid will get hung up on that wood cover. It'll kind of saw into it. It'll get caught in the creases, and fluorocarbon, straight fluorocarbon will not do that. So that's why I'm using fluorocarbon, and not to mention 20-pound test. I mean, 20-pound test is hard to break. I mean, you have to really not pay attention to your line to be able to break it. And I set the hook like a madman. So if anyone's gonna break 20 pound, it's probably gonna be me. And I don't break 20 pound. Oh God. Another giant. About sent that one to the new earth that they found. What is that called? Nebular or something? I don't know. That was almost a cluster. Got us another one flipping though. Gosh, that's fun. I enjoy this. The water on this side of the lake I'm on is a lot clearer than the other side. The other side had a little bit of a algae bloom to it. Sometimes that algae bloom really helps to keep fish shallow. Now that fish I just caught was in pretty much the thickest clump of grass around here, which makes sense because when it gets real clear like this, they're gonna need some good overhead cover. I don't know if these pads are enough cover to keep them you know, in this stuff. Sometimes it'll surprise you how shallow bass can get even in clear water, especially if you have cover like I have here. I mean, I don't know if this water has enough cover to keep these fish up here shallow. I mean, obviously one was up here, but he was also in a little mat, and there's not really matted cover like there was over on that other part of the lake. So, but it's always good to keep an open mind. Give it 15, 20 minutes. And if you find fish in an area like this, a lot of times you're not gonna find other guys fishing it because they think the same thing. They think, oh, that's too clear. There's not enough overhead cover for these fish. And sometimes the bass will fool you. You know, I did a video that I called the extremes of bass fishing. And one of the points that I made in the video was that anytime you get into a situation where you feel like, I don't think the fish are gonna be here, it's too shallow, it's too deep, it's too something. If you are wanting to turn around, then a lot of other guys are also going to want to be turning around. So in that situation, when everyone else is turning around, if you can find fish in that area where most guys turn around, you're gonna have those fish to yourself. And a lot of times you can find big schools of fish that are easy to catch doing it that way. So that's why I always give something at least 15 or 20 minutes. And I've had 2 bites over here. I missed one and we caught one. So we'll just see, maybe there's more to this, but we're just gonna keep on going and see what happens. There's one. Another little one. I'm starting to believe that there might be only little ones up in this shallow stuff. Now this grass here is definitely thicker. Whether they get in it or not is the question. Oh, there's one. Okay, maybe we answered the question if there's fish in those. Still not a good size one. Well, I think that's it for me today, guys. If you want to learn more about flipping and pitching, I made a video right here where I talk about big mistakes that a lot of anglers make while flipping and pitching. So if you guys enjoy this video, you're going to like this one as well. Please subscribe to the channel, comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.